specialist of episodes. Word on the curb is it's Pride. And I want to go ahead and take this time to share my story with the people who are new here, who don't know my story, or the people who just may be on YouTube at 2 o'clock in the morning and may have just happened to slip up on my video. So let's start from the beginning. Okay, so starting from the beginning, um, I'm born and raised in New Orleans, and in my childhood and early years, I really didn't know too much about the whole element of being gay and what that might have meant and how that might have meant and all of the things. Never really paying any attention to what what that might have been. I was too busy trying to be the kid that fit in. I hadn't fit in already. I wasn't fitting in. Um, I was in a house full of you know cousins who felt as if you know they were superior to me. And this was in my whole family. This was specifically the side of the family that I was on when I was a kid. Um, need they remain nameless. Um, I went through so much, as a kid and trying to figure things out, and I never really had any guidance as far as, okay, so this is what you should be doing, or this is how you should be doing it. It kind of was like, okay, well, this is what everybody else is doing, and if you're doing something other than this, you're kind of weird. Um, and that's kind of what I accepted it as. I didn't really get into the whole, you know, uh, demographic of, oh, this person is gay. When I was a kid, I really accepted people who I met, especially through my dad and maybe anybody else in my life. I really accepted the people who I met for just that, who they were. I never really looked at it like, oh, well, they're gay, they're bisexual, they did with this person, they did with that person. It was never that. So, you know, but I had always been at least in company of at least someone who was gay. Um, and for me, uh, when I would go to school, uh, well, let me bring that statement back. It wasn't that I was always in the company of someone that was gay, because I want to be very clear and very transparent in what I say. It wasn't that I was always surrounded by somebody that was gay. I'm gonna call a thing a thing. It was really, I was around people that was homophobic. And I grew up with my grandmother who kept me in church, and it was kind of a thing like, every Sunday, choir rehearsal, and all of that kind of stuff. And, I felt like when I went to school, that was my freedom. Um, I was able to be who I really wanted to be. And I want to say about, you know, through elementary school, I still had no, insight of it. I mean, I would hear kids around school, just joking and saying, oh, you gay, your mama know you gay, your daddy know you gay, that whole joke. And I still, would pay no mind, and people would be like, oh, you're gay. And, kids not knowing what they talk about, I was paying no mind, and I was like, oh, you gay, just retaliating, just going back. But still not attaching it to myself, still not knowing who I really was at that point. I'm just growing up as a kid, you know, you know, when I got into my uh, middle school years, now by this point, I had already uh, began to find out who I was. You know, fifth grade going into sixth grade, I went through seventh grade and eighth grade at one school, like within 1 year, and I had went through so much. This is where I experienced bullying. This is where I experienced really what homophobicness was. And this was in school. This was amongst my peers. I mean, I was going to school with cousins, and I had relatives that I was going to school with and stuff like that, but they weren't getting what I was getting, and it kind of made me awkward because in certain instances they wouldn't even want to be seen with me, or like, treating me like the outcast. And that's also how I was getting treated at home with those very cousins at the moment. So for me, I was like, okay, well, school is going to be my outlet. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to be who I want to be. I'm going to do all of the things. And, eventually it kind of like blew up in my face. I was being bullied. People thought I was gay. People was just like say different shit and do different shit to me just off of the fact that, they thought that, oh, well, look at how he's walking, or look at how he talks, and look at how he carries himself. People just assuming about me. And it boiled over my last year of middle school. I ended up being jumped by dudes. It was a whole thing, just rumors being sprayed around the school that I said stuff, and just a whole bunch of stuff that really didn't even make sense. Ultimately, I ended up on the back end of the situation. I ended up being jumped, and then I ended up having to fight these dudes out of school. This was my first time having conflict in finding myself with other people. Me just wanting to be comfortable with me. And this is the first time that I had experienced, dudes who considered themselves straight, who really just had a problem with my gay presence. Dudes who really jumped to the conclusion of just because I'm gay and you're straight and I'm in the locker room with you, I'm looking at you, or I'm in some type of way, form, or fashion attracted to you, or I'm gonna want you, or just because I'm gay, I'm a bitch.
You what?
I'm a grown-ass man just like you're a grown-ass man. And that's where I learned that first. But my early years within finding myself, it was a journey. It was a journey, and in the beginning, I was experimenting with the idea of dating girls. I was attracted to girls. I was liking girls. I was out in school. I had girlfriends. I had crushes. It was people that I liked, girls that I liked, but always in my head, there was always something that I kept to myself as far as like my attraction, especially when I got older, going into middle school, and like, okay, I knew what elementary school gave, and I knew the flack that kind of had already, the taste that kind of had already left in my mouth. So I knew going into middle school, I had to do something totally different, okay? And I still ended up on the shit end of the stick, as well as most kids do right now in the world, especially being gay and coming out and being young. Being gay is such a controversial thing now. Being young and gay is such a controversial thing now, to the point where people are really like discriminating against the way people parent their children and all type of stuff, because their children decide that they want to be who they are, and the parents are okay with it. Okay? It's a whole thing, and I definitely resonate. I definitely resonate to what a lot of these kids go through. The bullying, the having to stand up for yourself, having to, just wanting to live comfortable in the world and not have to worry about, just because I walk down a block, is somebody going to shoot me? Is somebody going to discriminate against me? Is somebody going to want to beat me up just because I choose to be comfortable in my own skin? Nobody that's gay walks around having a problem with straight people being in love or bisexual people being in love. People have opinions, but people a lot of people in this world solely have it in their heads that being gay is just such this disease and hateful thing. You can't tell people who to love. You can't tell me how to be me. And that's what a lot of people don't get. But those are my early years coming into who I was. Now, let's move on. Okay, so when I came out, I was 14 years old coming out. Um, I it wasn't something that I did and I just made a big announcement. This was on my father's side of the family where I grew up. It wasn't something that was really a thing. I had a cousin that had came out as a lesbian. Excuse me. I had a cousin that had came out as a lesbian before me, who created a whole controversy within the family. You know, it was a whole conversation. Oh, she's gay. She likes girls. Yada yada yada. So I was in no rush to be like, hey, it's a rainbow. Like, I like Skittles too. Like, I was in no rush to do all of the things. So, me and my cousins were casually having a conversation about something, and they brought it up and were like, oh, are you gay? And I was like, yeah, I'm gay. And then they just like ran with it, and it became a whole thing, got around the family. People went to asking questions, and it was a whole thing. Now, my dad didn't take too kindly to it in the beginning. I can say that. He didn't really know how to deal with it, and my dad is one of those dads that feels as though if you're going to come to him with something, especially like that, he prefers you have all of your facts together. And he felt as though, you know, okay, you saying you're gay, but do you know what comes with that? Do you know that people are going to discriminate against you? And, you know, all of those things. And I really told him, yeah, I know. You know, like, I had already been accused of it leading up to this point, so I knew. Like, you know, and beyond that, I had already, like, you know, came to the terms of, like, if I was able to go through the traumas that I went through with my family and going through what I went through in my childhood leading up to that point, then I could take it. I could take it from the world, you know. So I really didn't care what anybody had to say, you know. And not long after that, I went from my dad's side to my mom's side. And my mother's side was definitely where I opened my wings and was able to fly. When I got into high school, things had changed because I was no longer where I was originally on my father's side. So when I did get on my mother's side, I really started to experiment. I mean, like, I really was able to, like, date and, like, get into the fashions. And when I was hanging around all of the girls and I became a girl magnet, all of the girls wanted to be my friend. I just started experimenting with, like, modeling and getting into my brands and, you know, doing all of this stuff. And I was so young. Like, y'all see me now. I just made 25, May 18th. Y'all see me now. And back then, if I knew then what I knew now, it would be I would be at a much different place in life right now. But I'm getting there. I'm still a work in progress. But nevertheless, yes. And even still, when I was in high school, when I got in high school, I was still being discriminated against, and I was still going through stuff, and I was still, you know, dealing with my own, you know, battles and things like that. But I would never let my family see that, you know. My family, and I thank God for those people. Okay, but I'll get to them in just a moment. Um, but my family had really just made me feel so welcomed and like so loved, and like they were like, okay, you can do it. Like you can do it. It doesn't you can do it. Be who you want to be and do your thing. Like it's not about what anybody else has to say. It's not about how anybody else feels. You can love who you want to love. Be you and do you, and we're gonna love you just the same. You know, and I have a much different relationship with them than I have with the family on my dad's side, because it's such a iffy thing with them to where I don't even like, and just off of the trauma and shit that I went through on that side of my family, I don't even care to even have a relationship with them like I have with the family on my mother's side, because the way I give it up with them, they know, you know, and they've been accepting me from day one, from day one. So, you know, it's getting into my high school years. I was still going through finding who I was, but I was also coming into who I was because I was so all over the place. It just was once I really had did my research and found out, okay, well, this is what being gay is, and this is what it comes with, and this is what you can do, and this is how far you can go, and like this is what cities give to the gays, and like this is what the girls love, and like I got into I got into and I didn't care. I was like, okay, well, I want to date, I want to go out, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to wear this, I want to wear that. I just was, and my mother was right there. Thank God for her too. I'll get to that in a moment. But like, my high school years were something. That's where I had my first sexual experience as a openly gay person. My first sexual experience with the dude was during that transition of going from that side to my mother's side, and all of that happened within that small gap of time, and it was only in a matter of a few months that like I was living the life that I had dreamed of living. I no longer had to like look over my shoulder and worry about who's gonna judge me, or if they find out, or like, if they heard me mention, okay, the thought of me wanting to date a boy, it was gonna be such this big conversation, because as I mentioned in the beginning, my dad wasn't okay with the shit. He wasn't okay. He threatened to buy me some Dora the Explorer fucking shoes. Like, it was a whole thing. My dad was never on this, okay, let's do this. I understand what you want to be comfortable, be you, be. And now, thank God later in life that he's, at a much better place, and he's more knowledgeable of my lifestyle and what I do and how I do it. But back then, he wasn't with the shit at all. Like, he was not. And then I was young, ingesting that type of shit, And I had to, by high school, that was when I first got into, like, finding, okay, well, I think I may like boys, And the minute my dad got just the slightest whiff of that, he was, like, being homophobic towards me. But by high school, it had cleaned up. I was able to do my own thing, and my mother played a big role in me just living the life that I wanted to live, regardless of how he felt or anybody else felt about it, But, yes, my high school years were different than most people's high school years. I dealt with so much, finding friends, on top of still dealing with discrimination in school, but I'm comfortable at home, so I'm having a sense of security at home. It just was a lot to ingest. But ultimately, I got it together. Okay? So, and I found who I was, which is where we're about to head right now. So, moving right along. life after coming out. Life after coming out for me was crazy. Okay? Like, I dating for me became a clusterfuck of just figuring out who the hell I was. Like, what was I attracted to? It's basically like being kind of reborn almost. Like, you're having to find out who you are all over again. And it was so much. You have to go through so many. I don't like it. No, I don't think I'm attracted to it. It doesn't interest me. In order for you to get to, I like it. I'm into it. I'm attracted to it. This is my type. You know, and adjusting to society, that was something else. Society was so mindless to the thought of people being gay and adjusting to society. You know, gay marriage wasn't even a thing, you know, when I had first came out. So, you know, society still had a long way to go. You know, people were still doing a lot of reckless shit towards gay people, and they still are right now today. But it wasn't as much of a pivotal thing, you know, as it is right now today. But back then, they were still doing undermined shit. It has always been a thing. And, you know, the world has a long way to go. When I came out, there wasn't a Pose, there wasn't a P-Valley, there wasn't none of these shows that now depict, you know, LGBT, you know, people and what they offer and what they bring to the table. There wasn't any of that on public television, you know. And just within the last 10 years, that has become a thing where now, you know, LGBT people are being depicted on TV. And I'll get into my thoughts on that later in this video, but society still had a long way to go. And it was hard for me to try to figure out, okay, how do I adjust to society? How do I figure out who I am at school? Figure out, you know, who I want to be, how I want to be it career-wise, you know, where do I want to go after school? Like, it was just so much to take into, you know, my living situation, and it was a lot to just take in for myself. And my family, you know, like I said, they played a major role in Armani finding Armani right now today. A lot of who I am comes from my family, you know, being the support system that they were, you know, and that they are. You know, my family is, in a sense, overprotective of me. They know my attitude. They know how I am. They know how I operate, you know. And for a lot of people who don't have, you know, family or friends or people that they can rely on, or, you know, things like that, adjusting to society is hard when you're gay and when you're coming out and when people don't know you, and when your city or town is really uncomfortable with the idea of gay people, or, you know, same-sex marriage, or, you know, kids having same-sex parents, or whatever the case. A lot of these places and a lot of these cities and states make it so hard for kids to even want to comfortably come out now. And social media wasn't even as big of a thing as it is now. When I first came out, MySpace was still active when I first came out. Society wasn't as big as it is now. And like, coming out, being gay, people post that shit on Instagram and people clap. It's not even a thing anymore. But like, back then, I wish it was that easy when I first came out, because it would have made it just a little easier to adjust to society. You know, Facebook had just became a thing and was becoming a thing, and it just made things so much harder. But ultimately, adjusting to society comes with finding your own lane. You have to find who you are and what do you bring to this spectrum of being within the LGBT community, and offering the things that you see fit that'll be beneficial to this community, whether it be your creativity, whether it be your presence, whether it be your talent, whatever it may be. Everybody within this community offers something different, and you have to adjust to society in order for you to find what that is. A lot of people don't go into things just doing it, especially not within this community. It takes a lot of people, and you'll hear a lot of stories from a lot of people that'll tell you, I wanted to be this, and when I came out, I was able to flourish and be who I wanted to be, but I wanted to be this, and I thought about doing this, but when you go into it, the physical, the mental aspect, that just the thinking and the figuring it out, and just so much, it just plays so much of a big impact on your mind, and you have to adjust. But ultimately, I adjusted, and I figured it out. I was able to move on, go to school, do things, and ultimately, the girls had to get out of New Orleans. I ended up leaving after I graduated from high school. I ended up not graduating from high school, but I ended up going to Job Corps and finishing and getting my diploma there, because school, it was just a whole thing, and I almost ended up expelled. It just was a whole thing. But ultimately, I did get my diploma, and I went on, and after I had experienced what I had experienced down there, with what I was dealing with the living situations and all of the things, I left, and I went to Florida. And now this was my first time really being independent, okay, adjusting to society. Here we go again. This was my first time really being independent on my own, away from home, and I was ready to go. Like, I was ready to explore, I was in the club. Me and my friends was riding to Tallahassee. We was doing all of the things that I had wished. And y'all know that Florida weather is real nice. Florida weather don't play. So ultimately, I ended up finding who I was, and Florida really solidified it for me. Like I said in the beginning, if I knew then what I knew now, the money that I was making there, I would have did a lot more with it. Okay, but yeah, a lot of people have to adjust, and you have to find your niche. If you don't do anything in this community, and whether it be the L, the B, the G, the T, Q, I, A plus, whatever it is, you have to find your niche and figure out who you are, and then adjust to this thing that we call a fucking planet. Because people are ignorant, and people are homophobic, and they do crazy shit. And in order for you to be comfortable and to step in society and still be who you are and still be impactful in who you are in society, you have to adjust. Now, moving right along. Okay, now, finding my path. Before I left New Orleans, I had ventured into a little bit of modeling. And when I got onto my mother's side, and I really had got like a little bit of a sense of independence, I started to do different things. And, some without even my mother knowing or my family knowing, I just was out doing shit. And I had got into modeling, and I had done a shoot with an agency that shall remain nameless, because I don't want to give them any credibility on this channel. But I had did a photo shoot with this agency, and I was underpaid for the shoot. And I had to realize, okay, well, if you're going to be a model, you got to figure this formula out. You have to figure out who you are. And I'm short. I'm only 5'7". And most agencies look at people that are 5'11", 5'10", 5. So if I'm going to step in an agency and I'm going to do something and I want to do something impactful, I have to fit the mold of what they're saying. And you know, it was hard in the beginning, but when I got underpaid, and this was my first shoot with them, uh, I was like, okay, I can't. Like, I can't. It was for a major fashion brand, and I was underpaid. And I'm like, this could have been a Beyonce, this could have been a anybody, and they would have probably paid them millions and or hundreds and thousands, and But me, I was underpaid, and I ended up leaving because I was underpaid. So when I went to Florida, I started to do a little bit more venturing out there as far as modeling, and things started to look up. I started to really get into being more of a finding what my representation of modeling and my representation of art was, and figuring out, okay, how do I expand my creativity? I experienced all of that. I've triumphed everything that I've been through as a child in high school, all of that stuff. Now here I am stepping out as a young adult on my own, and now it's time for me to figure it out. So of course I started venturing and figuring it out, and my friends at the time, the situation was a little rocky, and I ended up leaving. I had to leave. Well, all of us ended up departing, but I had to leave ultimately. And I basically left in complete disarray. I left Florida because of the situation that was happening in the moment, and not because of what was happening, where I was, within where I was living, like having a job. I wasn't considering any of that. But what I was considering is, okay, well, there's 50 states. There's a lot of places you can go. So this didn't work out, and you see how this is. So let's go somewhere. Let's try to do it by yourself again. Then I came to New York. I came to New York, child, and I acted a fool. Okay, I'm lying. When I first got here, New York really showed me. Now I was so caught up in the lights, camera, and the action, and I had already spoke to a few photographers and agencies and things of that sort who had let me in on, okay, well, you could possibly do this, you could possibly make this, but I was kind of iffy about going back to an agency, and it just was a whole thing. So ultimately I was like, okay, no. If Armani is going to be Armani and he's going to New York City, he's going to create a brand, and he's going to do it on his own. And I chose not to go with an agency, and I've been doing it on my own. And I prefer that because I prefer building the photographer model relationship versus having to go through an agency to build a relationship with a certain brand or a photographer. I would rather do it by myself. But ultimately, moving to New York, I got so caught up in the lights, the camera, the action, oh, you can be gay, you can be comfortable here, there's nice resources and stuff like that. But New York is a city that will chew you up and spit you out. And a lot of people don't realize that looking from the outside in. You know, people who want to visit here, people that just say, "Oh, I want to go to New York. I want to visit there so bad. I want to go. I want to go. I want to go," but they don't realize how New York really is living here. You know, you don't see the adversities that New Yorkers have to go through being here. You know, and this is where my family comes in. My support system. And before I get into that, let me say this. If you are, I don't care if you're coming out, if you're thinking about coming out, if you are in this community already, then you can relate to what I'm saying. You need a support system, whether that be people within this community, whether that be your own family, whether that be your friends, whomever. You need a support system because you cannot find yourself within this community on your own. You have to go out into the world and experience stuff in order for you to figure out who you are. And my family is that support system for me. You know, I don't give a damn what happens between us. I don't care about what the fuck they tell to me. I don't care about all of that, okay? When shit jump off and get deep with me, I know who I can go to, and that's my family. Whether I'm in the right or whether I'm in the wrong. Whether I know they're going to read my ass or whether I know I'm going to have to read somebody over there. You know, and, you know, it is what it is. But ultimately, no matter if we stop talking for months, we can stop talking for years, we can stop talking for whatever, we're going to ultimately come back. And they're still going to be the very support system they were to me from day one. And that's what I lacked in the beginning, in my early years, you know, a safe support system. And my family gave that to me, and they still do give that to me, you know, being here in New York and them being back in New Orleans where they are, you know, it keeps me on track. It keeps my mind sound. They keep me balanced. They're my little bit of touch of home, and I love them to death. You know, they're my support system. You know, I can lean on my family for anything. They might act lazy about it. They may, you know, give me hell about certain shit, or they may act like they don't have shit, or, you know, family is family. But ultimately, when shit jump off and get deep, my support system is there. They're not going to question, you know, stepping out for me or not. You know, they're going to step out, whether I'm wrong or whether I'm right. And if stepping out and reading my ass is a part of the process, then they're going to step out and read my ass. Period. So, you need a support system. Don't go through this shit alone. You need somebody to vent to. You need somebody to be able to talk to that relates to you, that can understand. You need somebody that you can comfortably throw shade with. Okay? You need a support system that can not only be your friend, but when you need them to be your superior, they're there. When there needs to be, you need somebody that's going to tell you right from wrong. Don't have a support system that's going to sugarcoat shit and make you feel like everything you do and everything you say and the way you act is okay. No, because it's not always going to be that. You know, you'll see that in finding yourself. But you need a support system. Everybody needs one, you know. And I thank God for mine. My mother, while she was alive, God rest her soul, she was a major part of my support system. My mother was the parent that accepted me from the beginning. She was the one who said, be who you want to be. I don't give a damn who that is. Be who you want to be. Be successful. Get an education and be successful. And that's all that I ask. Be who you want to be. You know, and my mother was able to see me be successful and do all of the things before she passed away. And that's what gives me the drive that I have now. You know, and that's what makes me a little bit more comfortable talking about it, because I have to realize, and I have realized, and still am realizing, that my support system is firm. It doesn't matter what happens between us. Family is family. And that's where I fucked up on my father's side. You know, they realize family is family too, but they don't give me what my mother's side gives me. And they give me exactly what I'm looking for. So, need that being said, make sure you have a support system. And we're going to move right along. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the last section of this video. Um, being biased within the community. Now, being biased is a taboo thing within the LGBT community because a lot of people don't agree with your opinion. And a lot of people within this community jump on the bandwagon of, oh, they're doing it, or this is the trend, or that's the trend, or girl, I'm gonna break it up with this, or girl, I'm gonna eat it up with that. And they don't realize that everybody within this community is not gonna agree with that. Not everybody is, oh, girl, child, shade, boo, miss thing, girl, honey, please, child. Everybody is not like that. Some people are laid back. Some gays that you come across are just not with the shit. I can still be a gay man and have the mannerisms of a gay man, but I don't have to go out in public and that be my persona. Or, I have an auntie who once taught me that, you don't have to do too much to be who you are. You can walk in a room and people know that's you. Without you saying, oh, honey, child, you threw shade and all of that extra shit. But they know that comes with the mantras of being within this community and, living the way that you're supposed to live and living the life that you live. On top of that, I don't agree with certain things within this community, like a few things that I'll go ahead and say. I don't agree with the fact that, Pose and P-Valley and these shows, they don't really give the aspect of what being gay is. But don't worry. I'm writing a book, and it'll be out the beginning of next year. And you'll get exactly what I'm saying by the statement that I just made. You don't really get the full aspect of what being gay really is because they sugarcoat it. They sugarcoat it with, oh, it's love. And, TV has been playing it safe for a long time. And that's a part of the problem, too. They can only do but so much. But it's like with the little bit that they can do, they're still playing it safe. But of course, I support the people within my community. I clap for all of them. Of course, depictions of the LGBT community in different lights and in different moments, we need that in society right now today. So I'm not against, the idea of the show or it being depicted or whatever, but the stories within said show are what I don't necessarily agree with. Yes, some stuff was pivotal. Yes, some things are pivotal and some things need to be shown on TV right now in this moment. But there's a lot more that needs to be shown on TV right now in this moment, right now in this day and age. Because if people had at least the slightest level of clarity on certain situations or certain predicaments or certain elements of the LGBT community, people would be a little bit more educated on the things that we deal with and go through on a daily basis. But what's being depicted on TV and what people are sitting in front of in their houses, getting comfortable at night, turning on to watch, is not giving them the real of what's going on, or at least a slight idea of what's happening. Okay? And it's okay to be biased. That was the whole point of this section of this video. That it's okay to be biased. It's okay to have your own opinion. It's okay to do your own thing. It's okay to not agree with everybody. It's okay to not be that girl. Because everybody tries to be that girl. It's okay to be a Kelly or a Michelle. Everybody is too busy trying to be a Beyonce. Be you. Be you. Find out who you are and live your life. And if being biased is a part of that, be biased. You don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to be a follower. You don't have to jump on every bandwagon or be a part of every movement. You don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to be on every scene. Just because you're gay, that doesn't mean you have to do drag. Just because you're gay, that doesn't mean you have to be in ballroom. Just because you're gay, that doesn't mean you have to be feminine, or you have to identify as feminine or as masculine, or as you have to identify with titles, period. Just because you're gay, you can be biased. You can understand some of the things and some of the opinions that straight people may have about us, but you can also understand some of the opinions that we may have about what straight people do to us. So, it's okay to be biased. It's okay to be biased within this community. And I'm not saying that you're going to be liked for it. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy being biased because there's a lot of people who hate my guts, who hate the ground that I walk on because I'm biased and I'm going to give the real opinion of what it is, and I'm not going to give it in a way that's going to sugarcoat or make a person feel secure in what they've done, especially if it's not right or it's not, especially it's not really on the level of what we need right now in society. Period. But yeah, that's a little bit of my story, and I just wanted to share those things. It's Pride. Enjoy yourself. Be in love. Have fun. Do your thing. Enjoy yourself. You know, they don't call us rainbows for no reason. Child, we colorful. We do these things. We out. And let me say this before this video is over. This world would not move without gay people. We're the hairstylists. We're the makeup artists. We're the stylists. We're the gown designers. We're the fashion designers. We're everybody and everything, just like regular people. So when people start to realize that, and they realize that this is no longer taboo, child, we're part of the world too. The world will be a much better place. But child, you enjoy yourself now. You have a wonderful life. And if you're coming out, know that I have your back and you have my support, child. Come on over to our club and just be free. I'm not saying nobody just come out and just do, I ain't trying to advocate for the straight people to turn gay, or I ain't trying to tell nobody children come on over and join. I ain't trying to do all of those things, but what I'm saying is, ain't no life like a free life. And living comfortably in your truth and not giving a fuck what nobody have to say. Thank you for watching. And thank you for supporting my first documentary in PSA. Thank you so much. I love you all. And I'm going to see you July 4th for season 2 of Armani's Got the Heat. We'll be back. Thank you for watching yet again.